Courage in Crisis, conversations of faith, health, and wellness. We have been bringing you this series of programs as we seek to respond to the challenges, the various challenges that COVID-19 has tossed on our plates and asked us, as it were, of demand of us to respond. And so we have done a number of programs to help persons to respond in terms of mental health issues and just to be able to breathe out and to adjust and adapt to the various realities. This program is sponsored by the Moravian Church, East and West Indies Province, and I am Algernon Lewis. I'm chairman of the Moravian Church, East and West Indies Province. This afternoon, we have a program which is a continuation from last week's program on food security and faith. Last week, we were talking more theoretically what is possible. And this week, we are going to show you what is actually possible. And I have a Farmer Brown on the program today, if I may call him that, my good friend, my fellow sweetsman, the Reverend Nigel Daniel, who now is doing ministry in Tobago. And he has a passion for farming. Along with the gospel, he has a passion for farming. There may be other passions, but we won't get into that. But those two things are certainly up there, the gospel and agriculture. And so he's been talking about doing things towards food security. And he has gotten tired of talking and has started acting. That's the kind of people we like. And so, Brother Nigel, Reverend Daniel, welcome to Courage in Crisis.
Thank you very much, Brother Algernon. Thank you for having me this afternoon. It is indeed my pleasure to be with you and the wider audience.
Okay. We are giving you an opportunity to back your chat, right? We're giving an opportunity to be able to show persons in our communities what is possible. Church is, at this point, is really about empowering people. We really want to empower people. And this is one of those things that we need to do. We talk about food security. Last week, we had all those discussions about the things that are possible and so on and so forth. Can you tell me, just give us a little bit of information about yourself. And maybe I should ask you, first of all, we usually ask people who come on the program, how are you doing? How are you adjusting to the new challenges of COVID-19?
Well, I think by the grace of God, I am doing well. And to a great degree, COVID-19 would have been a good experience.
That is good to hear.
I would have had the opportunity to really spend a lot of time with self and the family. And so I would have taken COVID-19 from a positive perspective. That's how I looked at it. And really,
Sabbath rest.
Yes, really capitalize on the opportunities that would not have been afforded to me had it not been for COVID-19. If it wasn't for COVID-19, I would have been all over the place, doing ministry and so forth. So I give God thanks for what COVID-19 has allowed me to experience. You have the good and you have the bad. And so I tend to look at it from the brighter perspective.
Wonderful. So you're throwing in an element of saying to people, this may be an opportunity, that, and you certainly utilize the opportunities in the way that you have. You've been in ministry, you're a pastor for how many years again?
19 years.
19 years.
Yes.
Right. That's a long.
Actually celebrated 18 years of ordination on the 26th. On
26th of May.
Tuesday. Yes.
Tuesday.
Yeah.
Wow. Very good. I remember that fateful night at
yes.
Right. I was there. Good. So 20-something years, 19 years in ministry. You've served in Antigua. Now you're serving in in Tobago,
In Tobago,
and
right.
you have been posting off on some of us that you have a green thumb, and you've been showing pictures of big cabbages and or is lettuce or whatever it is that you've been growing. What has that been like for you?
Well, put it this way, Algernon. Before going off for ministry, I was in agriculture. And
Okay.
so it was one of my favorite subjects in school. And I pursued it after school. And even while I was in college in Jamaica, it was still very much a part of me. So even in ministry, while I was in Antigua, I was doing a little agriculture, keeping that alive. All right. And I give God thanks for that. So it has not left me, as I should say.
It never left you. It has been
No,
there
never
all
did.
the time.
All the time, yes.
Okay, good.
I remember Reverend Jarvis one time came visited me in Jennings, and he said, "Boy, what are you doing? You're wasting your talent." because I had a lot of grafted plants because I was doing grafting at that point. So I had grafted mangoes and so on, just there for the fun of it, right? And he said, "Boy, you need to do something with that."
Wow. So you have all those talents of
there,
grafting plants and so forth. You're saying you have those kinds of talents of.
Oh, very much so.
Okay, wonderful. So indeed, you are quite a farmer. Now, one of the things that we've had this conversation about food security because of what COVID-19 has done. I mean, it's been a conversation all around, but what happened in recent times, it has become more of a conversation because of the fact that we were wondering whether or not we'd be able to get food into the country, whether the ships would be able to come, and if the ships stop coming, what would happen to us? And so now we've got to seriously come up with this whole idea of food security. So what I want to understand from you, how do you understand food security? Where do we begin with that? And then we want to look at what it is you have been doing towards food security. When you think about food security, what comes to mind and what it is you have been doing towards securing food for yourself or for your family or for your community, etc.?
Well, simply put, and even piggybacking on what was shared last week, it is the ability to make food accessible for people within, let's say, the respective nation, community, so that in a large quantity and so forth. All right. So it is about making sure that you don't have to depend on any outside source for your food. So in other words, you don't allow any outside force to determine how you eat. So for argument's sake, if the cargo ship doesn't come because of hurricane or something else or some other natural disaster, you within your country, you are able to provide enough food for your people to eat. And that is very important. So food security, to my mind, encompasses all of those things. All right?
Oh, okay. So you want to make sure that there's enough food. So tell me though, what have you been doing? I know we have pictures, but talk to me about your process there at Spring Gardens in Tobago so we can begin to dig into the meat of this.
Well, let me tell you, it has always been a passion of mine for the church to see itself in agriculture, to impact society. All right? And one of the things gardening would have done for me is to really crystallize the scriptures. Almost every time I'm in the garden, I am praying, I'm worshiping. And a lot of my sermons do come when I go into the garden. There are a lot of times I am frustrating myself sitting around the desk, trying to wrestle with the text and so on. And all I have to do is to go into the garden and just do something and converse with the Lord. And a lot of times my message is fleshed out in the garden. All right. So for me, it is a wonderful place to be. And look at where God placed the first human being, in the garden. Look at where Jesus made that critical decision, in the Garden of Gethsemane. So the garden is very important. It is very important to life, and I see the garden as being very important to me. So I take it seriously because I've learned a lot of lessons from being in the garden. And I was sharing with my wife today, a simple lesson of, we were in our nursery area, Belinda and I was saying to her, look at these plants, which I'll show you in a while. These little plants. And I said to her, these remind me of the children we have in our churches. It's like our Sunday school ministry. I said to her, you will not have a good produce if I don't take care of these seedlings. The produce, the outcome of the produce is very much dependent on the seedlings, how much care they receive. And so I said to her, if we don't take care of our children in Sunday school, if we don't build our Sunday school ministry and so forth, our church will not grow as it should. So these are life lessons, that I get from time to time, just being around the plants, just being in the garden. So here at Spring Garden, I've been really seeking to live that message, and relate it to Scripture on a daily basis. All right? So, yeah. And I've been trying to get the congregation on board with me. And so far, thank God, I've been able to get a few persons on board. So I think I have a team of about 6 persons who are cultivating with me at this point. All right? On that part of the church's project, I should say.
That sounds good. You have people who are working with you, so you have now a team that is putting things together.
Yes.
Now, let's just see. What I wanted to find out from you, where do you start? You have to first of all decide what you're going to plant, right? I have no clue as how these things go, so you need to educate me properly.
This is where I start. I first look at, what do I have? Okay, and okay. I take you back to Exodus chapter 4, and I'm showing you the scripture and making the scripture practical as I can.
Yes, please do.
Exodus 4, when Moses was doubting himself and complaining to God and whatever else, God simply asked Moses, what do you have in your hand? And God said to him, Moses said to him, I have a rod. And God was in essence saying to Moses, well, this is what I have given to you to use. This is what you have been using all along as you tended your father-in-law's sheep, the rod, as you guided the sheep. This is the rod that you are supposed to use. So even as we embark on an agriculture project, you first have to assess, what do you have? Okay? And so here at Spring Garden, I look out the window and I'll be outside and say, what do we have? Why should the church be, sometimes be begging? Why should the church always be asking? And when the church has, so much resources at its disposal, so that's where I start. What do I have in my hand? Okay, It does not necessarily mean I have to get something from outside to start. You have to look at what you have. The Word of God tells you as well, He supplies seeds to the sower. So, have the land, and then you ask the question, what do you decide to plant? And for me, I had a passion for, first and foremost, to cultivate lettuce. So, and that's what I have been doing mostly. All right.
So you're a lettuce specialist.
I'm getting there. I am getting there. You know, I bought my seeds from Antigua, and I cultivated the lettuce, and I started with the church. I gave the entire crop to the church, and so forth. And then I started to do we do it continually, you know. And now we are branching off to other things.
But let me just say that, but lettuce is usually a cash crop, meaning that money is involved, meaning you make money from lettuce.
Well, that's the whole objective.
No, I'm just saying that you know, there is that reality of there is good money here to be made. Okay.
Of
so
course,
let's do this.
There's good money to be made in agriculture on a whole. All right, anyhow you turn it. All right, and here in Tobago, the government is very instrumental and more or less encouraging, because here we don't have to pay to clean the land, to brush cut the land. We don't have to pay to plow the land. All those things are free. And so, in other words, you're starting from a good platform, all right? And so it's a matter of capitalizing on it, organizing properly, and capitalize on it. We have not been able to capitalize on it over the years as we should, you know, so we are going again to see, you know, how best we can really capitalize on the land that we have at our disposal.
Okay, sounds good. So let's take some pictures. We will look at some pictures that you have sent. We probably start with the nursery. No, or let's start with the land.
All right. This area here, we would have allocated for hot peppers. We are trying to produce at least about half acre of hot peppers. Hot peppers is always in great demand. You can never have enough hot peppers. And in other words, the market for this, you know, is very good. So we are trying to cultivate at least half acre of hot peppers. All right.
Wow, this is a lot of land, Brother Nigel. And this is all what I'm looking at here is just hot peppers?
All of that will be hot peppers.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is serious business. Okay, yeah. Can we go to the next slide? So how many seeds you think you would need to
in this case here, we will talk of trays. One tray will contain about 120 seedlings. So you may probably look at about between maybe 6 to 8 trays of seedlings.
Okay. But for backyard setting, you would just suggest that maybe somebody do like one bank of this as opposed to...
Well, I will show you on... Agent, take me, right? Not that, I'll show you when you come to the backyard what you can do. All right?
Okay, very well.
Yeah.
Next slide, please.
Give me another one, Adrian. Not that, okay. With the backyard, this is what Belinda and I are doing with the backyard gardening. Now, I must say to you that last year, one of the plans I had, you know, I never thought we would have been in such a situation like this, you know, but according to Carrie Newhoff, you know, he said, you know, the future is unkind to the unprepared. So I had prepared myself and the congregation and the community at Spring Garden to get into the backyard gardening. So I would have rolled out a plan for the members of the church and the community of Spring Garden to encourage them into backyard gardening. So this was part of the plan that I had presented at church council, not realizing that we would have been in this situation. So we would have gone into the community, made our visitations, you know, Sister Alga and a couple of us made our visitation throughout the whole of Spring Garden community. sharing the plan of backyard gardening and so forth. And in this process, I produce the seedlings and I give the community the seedlings for them to plant. All right. So take me back, Adrian. So with the backyard gardening, what we have here, this is just a little kitchen garden Belinda and I started. I was inspired by my mentor in agriculture, Leslie Samuel. He's over there in Miami, he's over there in Florida. And so following his program, he inspired me to get into the container gardening. So we started the container gardening. It's pretty easy. And so we have, basil, we have tomatoes, we have the thyme and sweet peppers, cucumbers, and so on in the buckets there. All right, and that's basically for our kitchen. All right. So we, from time to time, when they're mature and they're ready, you step out of your door and you just go and you just take what you want and take back into your kitchen.
So from farm to the kitchen.
Yes.
Right.
All right.
Okay.
Give me the one with the box, Adrian. Right. Now this is Belinda's grow box. All right.
What kind of box?
It's called a grow box.
A grow box. Okay.
Yeah, it's called a grow box. All right. And some people may call it a bin. All right. So in this here we have side, we have kale, we have tomatoes, we have onions, we have cauliflower, all growing in this. And I can't tell you last time we have been to the market to purchase side because we have been harvesting our own side for the past month. All right. Yeah.
Nice.
So this is another aspect of the kitchen garden, or if you want to call it that. All right.
Okay. So we can go back to the garden now. So what do you have planted here?
Okay, this is my lettuce project. This is my lettuce. All right. And if you notice, I'm using the drip line. I don't use overhead sprinklers. All right, because overhead sprinklers tend to attract a lot of grass, because the sprinklers will go far and wide, and they may not necessarily water the plants that you want to be watered, and then you will get a lot of grass. So I go direct by using the drip irrigation, all right, which really comes out of Israel. And the drip, the water emits, they have the emitters there in the drip, and the water go directly to the root of the plant. So you're not wasting water, you're conserving water. And this is very good, especially in the dry season in which we find ourselves in now. All right? They don't have to worry about water wastage with the drip irrigation. And this is what I use strictly with my gardening. So
that requires some investment though. That requires some investment because you have to buy this equipment and so on. And of course requires water.
Well, the thing is, if you don't invest in yourself, nobody should invest in you, You need to show some interest. If you, that's how I look at it. If you're serious about it, you will invest in it.
That sounds true.
Right.
So how long does this lettuce, for example, what we're seeing here, well, I imagine this is another view of the lettuce. Let's say this set that is closest to us,
no,
that is smallest.
That is not lettuce. No, go back. Yeah.
This one. How long before that lettuce becomes reapable, if that's a word?
About 6 weeks.
6 weeks?
Now it takes about 6 weeks, yes.
It's a short time.
Very short. Yeah, it's a quick turnover. It will be a little longer during the summer because of the heat. So we have to apply more water and you have to be a little more patient with them during the summer. They're better during the latter part of the year into the early part of the year. But during the summer, you take a little longer than the 6 weeks.
Okay. Yeah. And this is what? Iceberg lettuce,
no,
romaine
lettuce? This is romaine.
Romaine.
Yes.
What is the expensive lettuce, Brother Nigel?
Very much so. It is very, very expensive. It's the most expensive lettuce that I've seen.
So what do you have to do to care for it to make sure that you get good quality?
Make sure the soil drains well. Make sure they get adequate supply of water, also fertilizer, and if it's wet and so on, you'll have to make sure that you spray from fungus. All right. So it's basically that sort of care. You have to fertilize every week, and you have to make sure that they get enough water. If they don't get enough water, they can become bitter. Water is critical for lettuce because it's a leaf crop. So water is very, very essential. It's not like peppers that you can leave for a couple of days without water. Lettuce depends on water. In other words, especially romaine, they are heavy feeders. All right?
You went to the top of the chain. Can we see the other picture that was there? Brother Adrian, you could shift. What do we have planted here?
Okay, this area here now is an area that I would have given to a young man in the community. From our visitation, when we went community visiting, sharing about the backyard gardening, he would have expressed the desire to do some agriculture, but he didn't have the space. So, in discussion with my members, we came up, we agreed that we would allow him to cultivate just about 1/8 of an acre. All right. And so he has been doing that as a means of encouragement. And this morning I was speaking with him, I didn't know the full details of his life, but in parts he was basically saying to me that his profession was that he depended on tourism. And with all of that going, going more or less at a standstill, he had to do something. So it's really good that we could help him out in this way, and I'm really thankful for that. And he's trying, and I'm encouraging him on a daily basis in that regard.
Okay. So what does he have here? What are those things pointing up?
No, that's his irrigation system, and that is the overhead irrigation system that he has there, which I don't use. All right. And if you notice, he has cucumbers and he has lettuce and so on, but he also has a lot of grass. So, like this morning when I met him in the garden, he was cleaning the beds. All right. Yeah. So he has now to he has to contend with the cleaning, for a while.
Okay.
Yes.
I think that takes care of. You probably just scroll through to see some of the people that you have there working. What are they planting here?
Okay, this now is the area that we are planting cassavas, and we were hoping that we would plant at least an acre of cassava.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it sounds a lot, but it's not so difficult when you have the hands. All right, so that is the plan. So the folks that you see there, they're planting cassava. We started planting last week, Thursday, and we continued on Tuesday this week.
So you're done with your sticking the sticks in the ground? That's what it's supposed to do with cassava, right?
Yes. Yeah, you have to put this, you cut the sticks and put them in the ground.
Do they use a lot of water as well?
Not really.
Okay. All right. Anything else that you want to show us? I think there's another basket, there's another bed there.
Yes, there's another one. Yes, this one, yes. Now this area here is where we have earmarked to plant flavor peppers and pumpkin.
Okay. And for those who do not know what they're looking at, in the background there, way in the background, you are seeing the Spring Gardens Moravian Church, and there is a building that you all are building there at Spring Gardens on the property as well. So pumpkins, and then you have these things. What are those?
All right. So this is our nursery area, and what you're seeing here is the romaine lettuce in its early stage. all right, and the other seedlings that you're seeing alongside them. So this is where we start the whole process. I basically start them from seed to harvest. I do all of it.
Okay, very well. We get one or two more pictures. There's one more there with some things in the ground.
Okay. This is a young man. He's cleaning the garden this morning. He's weeding
getting rid of his grass.
Getting rid of the grass, getting rid of the weeds.
Right.
And you see, he has quite a bit of work there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now,
okay.
All right. This is now our family garden. This is what Belinda and I have been doing during the COVID-19 in parts. We have cucumbers, butternut squash, and corn, and another type of squash there.
Well, I'm impressed, Brother Nigel, with the work that you are doing. But you've highlighted a couple of things. One that is interesting in terms of you've offered land to someone, to somebody who wants to be involved in cultivation. You said, you can use this land for cultivation, and they're responsible for cultivating, for making them. And I imagine that they'll give you back some, give the church back some eventually.
Yes,
so you're saying
that is the agreement.
Right. You're saying to us here that as church, we can be involved in agriculture as one of the ways in which we can receive more funds to do the work of ministry.
Very much so.
Right. Because those people who are planting are also employed. You are paying them. They're not working for thanks.
No, they're not working for thanks. And if you got a route of working for thanks, you're not gonna get the hands coming out. There's a saying that I heard here in Tobago: reward sweetened labor. So it's important that persons know that at least at the end of the day, something will be coming back to them, as well as going to the church.
Okay. So how let's talk about stewardship then. So basically I'm hearing you saying that you are seeking to be a better steward of the gifts of God.
Very much so, yes.
How much land do you have there?
There are about 4 acres of land.
And much of that is under cultivation?
At this moment.
Doesn't that scare you, Brother Nigel?
No, the thing is, I prefer to see it being cultivated than to grow up in bush, because the other day, a few years ago, it was all bush and so forth, causing problems. And if it can grow bush, it can grow food. That's how I look at it. I'm also cognizant of the reality that it's all about one's perspective, and our eyes are afraid of work. And but it's a matter of planning and doing it stage by stage. You can't do it all at once. All right. Mm-hmm. So one of the things we would have done is we have begun, or we have commenced spraying the area before the weeds take over the area. So to avoid all the weeds coming up, we have commenced spraying with weedicide, to prevent the germination of weeds and so on. So we keep it under control. And so it's a matter of going, from time to time and plant, stage by stage.
Stage by stage, little bit by little bit.
Yes.
Do you have any plans for anything other than, I'm not very good at this, but I know that there is what they call horticulture, and there's also livestock and so on and so forth. Do you have plans to do other things that involve chickens or livestock, that kind of?
Well, we were looking at the horticultural part of it. In fact, that's where I have most of my training, in horticulture. I've only tried the crop production at this late stage in my life, but most of my training were in horticulture. And that's what I would have liked the church to get involved in, which would have required a greenhouse and so on. But the church is yet to see the vision, to capture that vision. But it has a lot of prospects. The church is poised right now because there is a great need for that sort of agriculture in terms of the horticulture. Yeah, there is a great need.
And horticulture has to do with plants.
Yeah.
With what? Yeah.
Flowers and so on. Yeah.
Right. And you can grow stuff because those people have to do bouquets and all the rest of it sort of thing. Right. A greenhouse kind of setting. So that you're saying that there's a market for that as well.
Yeah, there's a market for that as well. And if I must say, you know, just to tell you what would have shifted my whole view of ministry is when I read the book. It was given to me, and I thank God Bishop Conrad Spencer gave me the book some years ago, Prophet for the Lord. And when I read that book changed my whole view of ministry and what can be done. And, you know, and that's where I really was more or less inspired to use my giftings in the area of agriculture to see how the church can benefit. In fact, I mean, this morning I was able to talk with the young man who was in the garden. I was able to talk with him and, you know, shared about his experience with his family and, you know, and whatever. I was able to encourage him and so forth. Last week I was able to witness with, well, not a witness, but I did discipleship. How do I put it? I taught discipleship class in the garden last week while we were working. There's a young man.
You've been weaving the gospel and gardening together in all these ways, preparing sermons, witnessing, discipling, encouraging, all of that. God has been using you in many ways. Let's talk about sustainability for a couple of moments. We're a little out of time, but we want to just take a couple more. How is this going to be sustained, Brother Nigel? I'm not even thinking, okay, yes, you were there for 5 years, but you hit 50 in a few years from now and you decide, I don't know if I want to break my back with this. How is this sustained?
Well, one has to learn to work smarter rather than work harder. And agriculture does not necessarily have to be back-breaking. It's all about how you do it. It's a matter of using the technology and so on that are available. So in terms of sustaining this sort of program, one has to advance, move with the times. Okay, and you know, and if we do that, we would be able to do so. But the goal we are working towards is that in terms of food security, in terms of a pantry and so forth, what the long-term goal is to really have a supermarket wholesale sort of thing here at Spring Garden. That is the long-term goal. So this is just the start of something towards that goal. All right. So we believe it will be sustained if we achieve that goal, because you will be able to produce your crop here and also take to your supermarket as an outlet.
Sounds like a plan, Brother Nigel, of like, let's get the gardening section, the garden produce section going first. Let that make some money, let that be the seed in the ground, as it were, and then we can move on to the rest. I like the progressive way of thinking and the sense of that church doesn't just need to be that it's a Sunday morning thing, but church really is about empowering people, and that you're seeking to do that, helping people to learn how to farm, how to feed themselves, and how to feed the nation, how to make a living for themselves as well in the process. I appreciate the fact that you are not just talking about it, that you're allowing your skills to to make room for you and to get this conversation going. So I really, really want to encourage you and put you on that spot of saying, make sure that we don't keep talking about it, but this becomes a reality for us in other places. There are places where that there may be 3 acres of land just growing bush somewhere in other conferences. When you put your program together, you can say, this is how it can be done. And these are a couple of people that I know. And here are some seeds. I'm prepared to come in for a week. We'll fly you in to come home for a week or wherever that may be, some work. You'll preach in the night and do the farming during the day.
Well, not during the day, not during the day at all, brother. It's very early in the morning, or in the evenings, or in the nights.
Right.
Yeah.
But it is. But I'm I really appreciate what you've been doing, and this program. I'm hoping that persons would have heard this and figure, hey, but I know Brother Nigel. Let me call him up so that he can give me some tips. I see what they're doing. Let me have my own. Is it grow a box? That's what you call it?
Oh, grow box. Grow box. Yeah.
Let me have my own grow box. Let me try my own little thing. I remember Norma and Les Roy saying that you can use mulch and some other things to make the soil a little softer, and so you can grow your own things. Because we want to go from the garden to the table. We can feed ourselves. We know what we have fed, what we have put in those things, so we know what we are eating. And so I really want to thank you. I thank you on behalf of all of us who are listening and persons who will listen in the future for what you're sharing and for what you're doing and for the example that you are setting there. Some things are better caught than they are taught. And so you are sending a very, very clear message that, as a pastor, there are other things you can do to help, as it were, empower church, empower people, spread the gospel further. And I appreciate that greatly. So thank you for sharing. Thank you for coming on and for being a part of the program.
You are most welcome. It was my pleasure. It was a delight. And I really do hope, as I contemplated this afternoon, I really do hope it has been an inspiration to somebody, to really get involved in agriculture and, see how you can feed yourself. You don't have to always be buying.
When you're selling romaine lettuce, you should be able to feed yourself in many more ways than one. Well, thank you again. And to those persons who are viewing, thank you for sharing. You can send us some feedback, and you will hear from us next week. Next week we'll only have one program, and that program will be next week, Thursday. We are sorting out, we want to do something on fitness, health and fitness, how to remain fit during this time of COVID-19. And so you'll hear from us next week, Thursday. Spread the word, not Tuesday and Thursday, once per week from next week. Next week, Thursday, something on health and fitness. Have a good evening. God bless.
Thank you.